The cafeteria was alive with the midday chaos of clattering trays, laughter, and the hum of endless conversations. Sunlight spilled through the wide glass windows, bouncing off metal tables and plastic chairs, casting sharp lines across the linoleum floor. Mia, 19, and in her first semester of college, sat quietly in her usual corner near the vending machines, trying to fade into the background. She was dressed casually: black hoodie, loose jeans, hair pulled back in a low ponytail, the kind of look meant to avoid attention. But sometimes, attention didn't care if you wanted it. At the far end of this cafeteria, a group of boys was laughing too loudly, the kind of laughter that had a sharp edge to it. Their leader, a broad-shouldered sophomore named Ryan, spotted Mia almost instantly. His smirk was the kind that made your skin crawl, predatory and self-satisfied. Mia had been on the receiving end of that smirk before, usually paired with some muttered insult when no one else was paying attention. Today, though, he decided to up the ante. Ryan strode over his sneakers, squeaking faintly against the floor. His friends trailed behind like vultures. Mia tried to focus on her sandwich, her heart rate climbing. She could feel the weight of his presence as he stopped directly behind her. "Hey, hoodie girl." Ryan's voice dripped with mock friendliness. Hiding something under there. She didn't answer, just kept her eyes on the table. That only made him bolder. With a sudden jerk, he grabbed the back of her hoodie and yanked it down off her shoulders, pulling her t-shirt neckline forward in one swift, humiliating motion. The white cotton undershirt, beneath plain and modest, suddenly felt like the most exposing thing in the world. The noise in the cafeteria seemed to freeze, then spike. Gasps, chuckles, and the unmistakable sound of someone's phone camera clicking cut through the air. Mia's stomach twisted, her face flushing with heat. Ryan grinned wide, holding her hoodie like a trophy. "What's the matter, little shy?" Mia slowly pulled the hoodie back on, fingers trembling, but not from fear. Her chest burned with a slow, dangerous anger that was only growing. She looked up at Ryan, her gaze cold and deliberate. For the briefest moment, the grin faltered on his face. "Don't," she said quietly, her voice steady but low, like the edge of a knife. But he only laughed, stepping back and throwing a wink toward his friends. The laughter around the room was louder now, fueled by the cruelty of the moment. Mia could hear whispers already, her name mixed with mocking tones. She knew this wasn't going to fade away by tomorrow. She inhaled slowly, feeling her heartbeat steady itself. She had promised herself she wouldn't let her past training define her new college life. She'd left that part of herself behind: the early mornings at the dojo, the bruises from sparring, the years of discipline her father had drilled into her. But now, sitting in the middle of a cafeteria full of smirking faces, she knew one thing with absolute clarity. This wouldn't go unanswered. Not today. Not ever. Her eyes locked on Ryan as he swaggered back to his table. In that moment, she wasn't just humiliated. She was calculating, and he had no idea the storm he just invited into his life. Mia barely touched the rest of her lunch. The laughter echoing across the cafeteria clung to her skin like oil impossible to wash off. Every time she glanced up, she caught fragments of smirks, whispered comments, and the occasional phone raised just long enough to take a sneaky picture. Ryan was at the center of it all, leaning back in his chair, like a king holding court, his friends hanging on every word. Her hands itched to act, but she forced herself to stay seated. The old Mia, the one from high school, who had been quick to snap and quicker to fight, might have marched over and ended it right there. But she'd learned that acting in the heat of humiliation could sometimes give bullies exactly what they wanted: a bigger scene. She needed something they wouldn't see coming. When the bell rang for the end of the lunch period, Mia slipped out before Ryan could corner her again. She walked the long route to her next class, avoiding the main hallway where the noise of students bouncing between rooms was loudest. Her mind was already turning over the pieces Ryan's routine where he sat, how often he cut in line at the cafeteria, how comfortable he felt in that space. That comfort would be his undoing. The rest of the day passed in a blur. In class, she barely registered the professor's voice, her pen moving in automatic patterns across her notebook as her mind drifted back to her years of training. She remembered her father's voice during sparring matches. Patience is the hardest move to master. Let them believe they're safe. By the time the final class ended, Mia had a plan. The next day, she would arrive at the cafeteria earlier than usual, claim a table near the center, close enough to Ryan's preferred spot that he'd feel the urge to perform again. She'd wear the same hoodie, the same undershirt, the bait. That night, Mia trained in her dorm room. The small space made it difficult, but she adapted, practicing controlled strikes and quick footwork, visualizing the moment she would move. She didn't just want to humiliate him, she wanted the memory of her retaliation burned into his mind so deeply that he would think twice before touching anyone else again. Morning came too quickly, but she felt calm. The anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface. But it was a controlled burn, now focused and ready. She moved through her classes with quiet purpose, barely speaking to anyone. When lunch arrived, Mia slipped into the cafeteria 10 minutes early. The air smelled faintly of pizza and fries, the noise still low compared to the midday rush. She chose her table, strategically placing her tray down and sitting where she could watch the entrance. Sure enough, at exactly the halfway point of the lunch period, Ryan entered with his entourage, his laugh cutting through the chatter like a crow's caw. His eyes landed on Mia almost instantly, and that same smug grin spread across his face. He said something to his friends. She couldn't hear the words, but the way they laughed told her enough. Perfect. As he swaggered toward her, Mia took a slow breath, centering herself. Her grip tightened slightly, on the edge of the table. She didn't flinch when he stopped in front of her, leaning in close. "Guess you didn't learn yesterday," Ryan sneered. "Let's make today even more fun." Inside, Mia's mind was crystal clear. He thought she was the same girl from yesterday, humiliated, cornered, and defenseless. He was wrong. Ryan reached for her hoodie again, his fingers curling into the fabric like he owned it. This time, Mia didn't pull away. She sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on him, letting him think he was in control. Around them, his friends were already pulling out their phones, anticipating another round of entertainment for their group chats. The trap was set, and Ryan was walking straight into it. "Gonna hide under this all semester?" he taunted, tugging the hoodie halfway off her shoulders. "Come on, let everyone see what you're—" Mia moved. In one fluid motion, she caught his wrist, twisting it sharply. Ryan's smirk dissolved into a startled grunt as his balance shifted forward. She rose from her seat with sudden force, her knee bumping the table just enough to make the trays rattle, a distraction that masked her next move. She pivoted, guiding his momentum past her and forcing him to stumble a step forward. Gasps rippled through the nearby tables. Ryan tried to yank his arm free, but her grip was like steel. "Still want everyone's attention?" she asked quietly, just loud enough for the people nearest them to hear. Before he could answer, she released his arm, only to hook her foot behind his ankle and sweep it out from under him. He fell forward onto the table with a clatter, his hands landing in someone's open tray of spaghetti. The crowd erupted into laughter, the sound sharp and cutting. But Mia wasn't finished. She knew this had to be decisive, one strike that made him remember. She grabbed a fistful of the back of his shirt, yanked him upright, and slammed him forward again, this time straight into the food tray in front of her. The impact sent sauce and soda flying, a splatter of red and brown across his cheek and hair. His yelp was muffled by the tray as it slid sideways under his weight. Phones clicked and recorded from every angle now. Mia could hear the words forming in the crowd. "Oh my God." She just Did you see that? Ryan tried to push himself up, but she planted a firm hand on his back, pinning him down just long enough for the humiliation to set in. The table creaked under the pressure silverware clinking from the vibrations. You ever touch me again? She said, her voice calm and even, and you'll wish this was the worst thing I did. She released him and stepped back, her breathing steady, posture relaxed. Ryan staggered to his feet, his face blotched red with both sauce and fury. For a split second, it looked like he might charge at her, but the wall of phones, the dozens of staring eyes froze him in place. A voice from somewhere in the back shouted, "Yo, she just wrecked you," followed by a wave of laughter that rolled through the cafeteria. Ryan's friends didn't rush to his defense. They stood awkwardly off to the side, some half smiling in disbelief, others already backing away to avoid association. Mia picked up her tray, now empty of food, but heavy with satisfaction. She didn't rush. Every step away from that table was measured, controlled, and deliberate because she knew the image of her walking away would stick in every mind just as much as the moment she slammed him into the tray. And in Ryan's mind, it wouldn't just stick, it would haunt. Mia left the cafeteria without looking back, but she could feel the echo of that moment trailing her like a shadow. Even as she walked down the hall toward the stairwell, bits of conversation floated after her. Bursts of laughter, hurried whispers, the metallic clink of phone cases as people replayed the video over and over. By the time she reached her next class, the footage had already spread beyond the cafeteria. She caught the curious stares, the smirks of recognition from people she'd never spoken to. A group of students huddled outside the lecture hall, one of them holding his phone up. On the screen, she saw herself, hoodie on, head down, Ryan, looming. And then the sudden, shocking reversal. The sweep, the slam, the splatter of food. The room in the video seemed to erupt exactly as it had in real life. She slipped inside and took her seat without a word. But her calm didn't come from pride alone. It came from control. She hadn't lashed out in rage. She'd planned it, executed it, and ended it before it could spiral. That was the difference between humiliation and justice. One was chaos, the other was precision. Ryan, meanwhile, was spiraling. In the locker-lined hallway outside the cafeteria, he'd retreated to the corner by the vending machines, wiping sauce from his hair with a stack of rough paper towels. His friends hovered awkwardly around him, their earlier bravado gone. Man, that was messed up, one muttered, not quite meeting his eyes. Ryan slammed a fist against the machine, the metal rattling. She sucker punched me in front of everyone. You saw it. The truth was they had seen it, but so had the rest of the school. And what the rest of the school saw wasn't a sucker punch. It was a guy getting dismantled in broad daylight by someone half his size with an audience of dozens. By mid-afternoon, the clip had migrated to every group chat on campus. Comments ranged from, "She's a legend," to, "Don't mess with Hoodie Girl." Even people Mia didn't know started giving her small nods as they passed her in the hall, a silent acknowledgement that she'd done what many wished they could. But notoriety came with risk. That evening, as she headed back to her dorm, she spotted Ryan leaning against the brick wall near the entrance, his hands jammed into his hoodie pockets. He wasn't alone. Two of his taller friends flanked him, their postures, stiff eyes fixed on her. Mia. Ryan called his voice flat but carrying. She stopped, her grip tightening around the strap of her backpack. "You think you embarrassed me today?" He stepped forward, just enough for the security camera above the door to catch the movement. "You got no idea what's coming." Mia's expression didn't change. "If you're smart, Ryan, you'll let it go. You've already lost once." One of his friends shifted uneasily, glancing toward the camera. Ryan's jaw clenched, but he didn't take another step. Instead, he spat onto the pavement and muttered, "This isn't over." before turning away. Mia watched them go, her heartbeat steady. She knew threats like that weren't empty. Pride could make people reckless. But she also knew something else. If he tried again, she'd be ready. And next time, she wouldn't settle for just a food tray. The next day dawned heavy with tension. Mia could feel it. Before she even reached the cafeteria, the shift in the air, the way conversations dipped when she passed. News traveled fast, and so did the anticipation of a sequel. She knew Ryan's pride wouldn't let him fade quietly into the background. Sure enough, when she walked in with her lunch tray, the usual noise felt sharper, edgier, as though everyone was waiting for something to happen. Ryan was already there, sitting at his table, his two closest friends on either side. His eyes followed her from the moment she stepped inside, unblinking, calculating. Mia chose her seat deliberately, not in the corner this time, but at a table directly in the center of the room. If he wanted to make another move, it would be in full view of everyone. She set her tray down, unzipped her hoodie, and let her undershirt show just enough to bait him again. For several long minutes, Ryan didn't move. His friends whispered something to him, but he just kept staring. The tension in the room coiled tighter and tighter. Then, without warning, he stood, pushing his chair back with a scrape that cut through the chatter. He walked toward her slowly, every step deliberate, the crowd's murmurs following him. This was his moment, to reclaim some shred of dominance, and Mia knew it. She waited, her hands loosely resting on the edge of her table. Ryan stopped just short of her tray, his smirk returning, like a mask sliding back into place. Round two, he asked, his tone mocking but tinged with something else, the kind of hesitation born from knowing how badly round one had gone. "You sure you want that?" Mia replied evenly. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other. The cafeteria was silent, except for the distant hum of the soda machine. Then Ryan made his move, reaching for her shoulder again, quick and sharp. This time, Mia didn't just block him. She caught his wrist, twisted it outward, and used his momentum to yank him forward. In one swift motion, she hooked her leg behind his and drove him downward, slamming him onto the table in front of her. The impact rattled every tray within reach, drinks tipping over in a wave of soda and ice. Gasps erupted, followed by a roar of voices. Phones were everywhere, capturing every angle. Ryan groaned, his cheek pressed against the hard surface sauce from a nearby plate, smearing across his jaw. Mia leaned close enough for only him to hear. "This is the last time you lay a hand on me. Understand?" He didn't answer, but the stiffness in his posture told her enough. She released him, stepping back as he slid off the table, clutching his wrist. His friends rushed in, but not to fight. They pulled him away, muttering under their breath as they made for the door. The room stayed loud long after they left, the buzz of disbelief mixing with laughter and adrenaline. Mia sat back down, reclaiming her seat like nothing had happened, her heartbeat settling into a slow, steady rhythm. By that evening, the second video had already gone viral across the campus network. The message was clear, and it didn't need any captions. Don't mess with Mia. What happened in the cafeteria would be remembered for a long time, not just because it was caught on camera, but because it flipped the script on how power works in social spaces. Bullies thrive on the silence of their targets, feeding on embarrassment and fear. But when someone stands their ground with confidence and control, it forces everyone watching to reconsider where the real strength lies. Mia didn't win because she was stronger. She won because she was patient, strategic, and refused to let shame dictate her choices. The lesson was simple, but enduring dignity isn't something others can take from you unless you let them. And sometimes, the most powerful form of revenge isn't just about defeating the bully. It's making sure they know they can't rewrite the story in their favor ever again. That day, Mia wrote her own ending.